I'm Phil Cook.
I'm Mark Hyde.
It's been 25 years since we shot Despiser.
Just about 25 years.
25 years, yep. So back then I was casting for Gordon Hegg, and I was working with this armorer, a special effects guy, used to be in the Navy, and he blew things up for a living, and I don't know how it came up, but he mentioned, hey, I got this guy who works for me, maybe you could audition him for your movie. So Mark came up to audition for the part of Gordon Hegg.
And I sucked. So I just remained on the film to work as pyrotechnics and weapons and some stunts. And he did put me in as a Shadow Man, the second Shadow Man. And also Jeff the Jumper.
Jeff the Jumper, you got two parts.
And Shadow Man. So it was a wonderful experience for me. That's where I met Phil, and it was like guerrilla warfare film school. You know, it was just threw you right into it. I was working on the set a lot with him, for him. And Walter Suarez, who had brought me up, he was there quite often. We were doing practical effects.
Blowing things up, guns.
It was a great introduction to the world for me. So I thank you for that 25 years later. I'm still working with you and still learning.
Yep, so we formed a pretty tight friendship for 25 years, and now Mark and I are producing partners, and he's been in
several productions now.
3 Malice movies, he's the lead in The Pungo Witch's Tale, and he's one of the leads in our movie Ghost Planet, which is a prequel to Outer World.
Right in the middle of it right now.
Right in the middle of it, that's right. We're trying to finish up shooting for that. So we had some questions for old people like myself. What are your thoughts on the film after all of these years? Well, so about 2 months ago, this gentleman reached out to me saying how much he really loved the movie, and he was excited about it. He thought it was a classic, and he wanted to screen it in the movie theater. And I thought, okay, what's wrong with this guy? You know, I'm always suspicious when people say, oh, I really like your movie. And he's trying to be a really nice guy. And we did. We did an HD blow-up of the film. We drove down to North Carolina. He rented a movie theater. People came from all over to watch the film. It was actually an appreciative audience. People have finally sort of settled in and can allow themselves to enjoy Despiser, because I think when it came out, it was such a wild visual experience. You know, this is before Sin City and the 300 and any of these sort of virtual green screen reality type movies. We got out there first, and I don't think anybody knew what the heck to make of it. And I think they were a little confused by it. And now that weird style is just sort of ubiquitous. I think people just accept it and just now have fun with the story. And I think it's really found its audience, particularly on YouTube right now. And
the technology may have passed by, and there's a lot of, I don't know, there's so many effects in there that people would look at and think, you know, it's antiquated, which may be true, but the style of it is still fun. But the story is timeless, and the story is unique and original. When I read the script, I've never heard that before. I'm a big sci-fi fantasy fan. That's one of the things that's probably kept our friendship together for so long. And I'd never heard of aliens crashing or dying here and going to our purgatory. It was just a unique concept, and I never heard something like that before. And you know, Hollywood, it's a town that says it worships originality, and how little of that do you see today? And that was a really original concept.
People have commented it has a sort of an early PlayStation visual effects sensibility, which is true. I mean, we made it on 486 computers, if anybody remembers those, or 386 computers. It was really quite complicated. But from a conceptual standpoint, the beats are sound. Yeah, you know, it's all CG, but you know, do you get involved? Do you get on board the train and have fun with these people?
And it moves fast too. It's not, doesn't get bogged down, and it's, you know
like the characters.
Yeah.
You like the characters, and I think you get invested in the team. You know, and that sort of Star Trek sensibility. It's our team against the bad guys, and I think that comes off. So another question is, what do you think of the fandom that has developed over time around the film as people discover it on TubiTV and other digital platforms? I was amazed when somebody reached out recently and said, hey, do you have the VHS of Despiser? And I had cases and cases of this when I moved to this house, and I threw them away because I thought they were worthless. Who would have thought, after all this time, these are going for like 120 bucks, 150 bucks now.
I still got to work in VCR.
It's crazy. And then the DVD. One of the things I think Despiser really embodies is that classic glory days of the VHS era. You know, when you went to Blockbuster and you went to Hollywood and you looked at all those titles and you're always looking for something crazy, you know, because you've seen everything. So eventually you make it to Despiser. And for whatever crazy reason, it probably stuck with people, which is why, I guess, I mean, this is why you guys bought this Blu-ray. There's something so nostalgically, cheesily genuine about the picture, at least this is my theory, that's why.
Well, I think fans of sci-fi and fantasy genre are hungry for good content, and it's great content. And you know, I think that because of some streaming services now, they're available, that make it available to be seen, where you would have had a lot of trouble finding it for years and years, unless it maybe played on cable. It did play on cable.
It would have disappeared. It would have disappeared.
It would have been very hard to find.
But now it lives forever. There was apparently talk about a Despiser TV series at some point. Did anything ever happen to it? No. The long and the short. It was just too complicated, too much money. I mean, putting money up for a feature is complicated for a TV series. No. Although it's interesting, I was recently reached out by Mark Redfield, who plays Gordon in Despiser, and he's been doing radio plays, and he and I are talking about doing sequels as radio podcasts. Because we had all kinds of crazy stories. Yeah. Purgatory would be a fun place to continue to tell adventures. But there is talk of turning Despiser into a first-person shooter game, which is being developed by Corey Collins and his son, who at the time when Despiser was made was a little boy, if he was even alive at that point. And Corey is the one who actually designed the Despiser and the mama bug and the baby bug, and he did all the character animation. And so that author is exploring to try to turn it into a first-person shooter, old style. Did the Despiser have a soul? Or because it exists outside of our reality and planet, does the concept of a soul not exist to it?
Well, that's...
Actually, I haven't thought about that in a while.
That's a great question.
Well, I guess it comes down to...
Because if they were dead, then what were they in purgatory?
Gosh, you know, I wrote this thing so long ago, 30 some years
Because Gordon
ago.
in purgatory wasn't his physical body, it was his soul, right?
Yeah.
So was that the Despiser's soul?
Forgot.
And the Shadow Men,
A soul.
when they died, they brought them into purgatory. Was it their spirit or their physical body?
Maybe when you get sophisticated enough, you lose your soul. I don't know. I mean, the Despiser had to have been, at some point, quite a spectacular and brilliant creature. He just got pretty cranky because he got stuck. He was probably some, you know, typical boss, megalomaniac, and then he just is in solitary confinement a little too long. That's a great question. Sorry, I don't have a really profound answer for you. Did you ever plan to share the backstories of every character and how they got into limbo? Well, it's interesting, and I'm not sure this is going to make it to the DVD. We cut out a lot out of the movie. When I took it to my first DVD distributor, I said, Phil, you got to take 15 minutes out. And so I did, and a lot of that was backstory.
I think a lot of people would really want to know what was wrong with Jeff. Why did he end up on the ledge? And they probably want to know all about that.
Well, Jeff, we didn't have much backstory on Jeff, but we did have more backstory on Charlie Roadtrap and those people. I mean, it was part of the campfire scene, and it didn't really need it. You filled in the gaps.
It's the pacing more than anything else. You just kind of like move the story along.
That's the one thing we didn't want it to be boring. We wanted to keep the action moving and give you enough character development and let the actors sort of embody it. And
you don't always need that origin story.
I agree.
Just get right in the middle of it.
Just cut to the chase. And boring is
Kiss
the
of death.
greatest sin a movie can ever have.
Kiss of death.
Kiss of death. So, is there a limbo now after the movie ends? Technically, according to some religions, there are. I guess it got righted back to whatever its function was. We do know that all the bottled up souls there got released and got to move on to where they needed to go.
That closing shot, right? Driving down the road together.
Yes. Does it still exist? Yeah, it probably still exists. It's sort of like a clearinghouse for people who need a little way station before they decide to take the next step. If you could make the same movie today with today's technology, how would it be different? Wow.
Well, production value would be incredible because this poor bastards in those ragman costumes.
Which we still have the ragman costumes. We used them in the Punk
They
movie.
were so, cumbersome, to say the least. They looked awesome, but I'd say costuming. Practical effects, right? Would you still want to do practical effects?
Quite frankly, the real history of Despiser was it was supposed to be all done in practical effects. It was supposed to be the movie we were going to make after Beyond the Rising Moon. But I realized it was just too complicated, so we made Invader instead. And of course, by the time I got around to making Despiser, the CG thing had come along. But quite frankly, I think Despiser is a film where you could put a $50 million budget behind it. You could put in mainstream actors. It could be produced in, the Hollywood machine style. And I think audiences would have a blast with it if it was sort of a cross between Fury Road, that kind of visual sensibility, and, with real firepower, real Hollywood firepower behind it. I think it could totally break out. And the movie in its current incarnation is a proof of concept. So what could I do with it more? Man, I wouldn't want to go back there. It's just too hard, because I would be doing it all over again with the same limitations. And if somebody said, here's a $100 million budget, first of all, they would never let me direct it, which is fine. I'll take my money and just sit on the sidelines going, damn, that sure looks better than what we did 25 years ago.
Well, that's just it. I mean, what would you change? You might change the casting, story, costumes, but not the story. The story is it's pretty solid.
Yeah.
So would you just do a shot-by-shot remake with updated effects?
You could, because not many people have really seen it.
But would you go the complete digital green screen route where everybody's wire work?
And real cars.
You want practical. Yeah,
real
you want
cars,
practical
real
effects.
Crazy cars,
Yeah.
build sets
Props.
and crash cars. Yeah. Crash cars, real cars. That would have been awesome. Dukes of Hazzard on hell steroids.
Real fire.
Yeah.
Real buildings.
Yeah, that would be cool. Oh my goodness, and this last one. What is my favorite stop motion movie? Well, that's interesting. There have been so many beautiful stop motion movies that have come out. I just recently saw Guillermo del Toro's. Have you seen Pinocchio? It's beautiful. Pinocchio on Netflix.
I haven't seen that yet.
It's gorgeous. Yeah. One of my favorites, and I know it's one of Mark's favorites, The Box Trolls. He and his best friend and I went
I have to go back to Harryhausen myself.
The Box Trolls, and watching Mark Hyde watch The Box Trolls was worth the price of admission.
I still like Sinbad.
Yeah, the skeleton fight in the Seven Voyages of Sinbad is just legendary. It's perfect. But yeah,
I was raised on that. That's why I'm in this silly pastime that we find ourselves in.
So, gosh, any other anecdotes? Well, it's interesting. I'm actually in touch with most of the cast. And Mark Redfield, he's still in Baltimore, and he's doing his podcasts and such. And Tara Bilkins is married with all kinds of beautiful children. And with Dan Poole, the crazy shadow man, he's still doing stuff in Baltimore. And Doug Brown, I was trying to get him in film of mine recently. Didn't quite work out. Goodness. Michael Weitz, I think, is living in Israel. Gage Sheridan.
Mike Diesel.
Mike Diesel. I see him on Facebook. I'm not quite sure what he's up to these days. But anyway, that's it from the land of Despiser.
And Roxanne and Alex.
Oh yeah, so my two daughters they call them the Highway Twins. Are all adult women, teachers and lawyers now. It's kind of funny. So that's it. I hope you enjoy the DVD.
The Blu-ray.
The Blu-ray.
Blu-ray edition.
Check us out on Facebook. We have a Despiser Facebook page, and for any updates. Oh, and action figures. Despiser action figures might be coming out. Custom made, again, by Corey Collins, the genius behind
Not the troll.
Bastard. And I think that's kind of it.
I think that kind of wraps it up.
Thank you. Take care.
Enjoy the show.